bias. So the thing about artificial intelligence that I really want to explain, when people hear like, oh, there's bias and there's perpetuated racism, sexism inside of artificial intelligence, here's why. Because you're taking years and years of data that was produced by human beings, flawed human beings, and you're using that data to build the machine to help it learn. So there's two big newsworthy headline items that happened. One of them was proven to be artificial intelligence. The next one, not yet, but I predict that it will be. The first one was Amazon. Does everybody remember when Amazon was in the news for their resume machine, and it was pulling only male resumes to the top as potential candidates? The reason why that happened was because Amazon used their data to train the machine. They took every high performer in their company, and they took those resumes, and they fed it to a machine, and they said, learn what the resume of a potential high performer looks like, okay? So now you think about it, how did that list of resumes come to be? It was because us flawed human beings were reviewing those resumes with our human brains, and we were picking out the most confident, maybe the most exaggerated, no offense guys, resumes that we could find, and we were saying these are high performers. So the machine learned from our data that we gave it, from our behavior, and it perpetuated that data. So what did Amazon do with that machine once they realized how biased it was? They unplugged it. The end. Can't fix it unless you have an unbiased set of data, which really doesn't exist. The second example that's happening right now, did anybody see the news about Apple's credit card also being sexist, giving credit limits to men that are like exponentially higher than women, and in some cases, husband and wife who have the same credit score, right? So they're looking into it at the moment. I predict that it's the same problem. Apple partnered with MasterCard. Apple took years and years of MasterCard's data, which is flawed by human judgment, and trained a model to figure out what your credit limit should be. It's smart on Apple's behalf because it's very efficient, but what's happening is that it's pointing out and really highlighting the biases in the data. So that's kind of just the reality check of what AI is and why it's biased. Now, here's a hint for you. A lot of vendors, especially those of you in the independent space, a lot of vendors are going to tell you that they have AI because it's a buzzword and everybody loves it. It's the new thing. Everybody wants AI for Christmas. So how do you tell the difference between somebody who's just feeding you lies or lines or a sales pitch, and how do you tell if someone actually has AI? Write down these two questions because one of them is a trick question. One, how did you train your data model? Every artificially intelligent machine that learns from a data model. So if they can't answer the question about what thousands of lines and records of data they use to train their machine, it's not AI. And then ask them the second question, which is a trick question. How do you avoid biases in your artificially intelligent machine? And the answer is you can't. Because if you try to avoid biases, you are effectively creating more, right? You're editing the data and you're giving it your own bias. So there's no way to avoid biases in artificial intelligence. I'm going to shift into how we're going to see AI coming into the RIA space. In what areas are we going to see it? We can have a whole nother conversation later about what we think where we think that's going to go, perpetuating biases, and if it's a good thing or a bad thing. But now I'm going to kind of shift focus and just go into how are we going to see AI help us in our businesses, in our practices. And there's 4 general reasons. This is really good for my neck. One is, who are you spending time with? Prioritizing your clients and prospects. 2, what are you talking to your clients about? 3, when, how, and where are you talking to your clients? And 4, how are you following up? Whoops, backward. So the first one, prioritizing clients and prospects. This is a really interesting one that I think is going to be a little bit controversial when it first when it first comes to market. But it's something that we do inside of our brains every day. We meet a client, we meet a prospect, and you're automatically doing a calculation in your brain. You're saying, is this a good client for me? Are they a good culture fit? Are they more of a DIYer who's going to ask me a million questions and never really let me have control or trust me? Are they a good prospect for further prospecting, right? So do they lead some kind of group like a law firm, a lawyer community? Can they make introductions for me? You're doing this process in your brain right now every time you meet someone. It doesn't even have to be a prospect. It could be a friend. You're thinking about what benefits and what the potential long-term relationship between the two of you look like. Artificial intelligence is going to be really good at that because you already have clients that are great clients, and you can feed a machine all of that data and it can learn for you what is a great client, what does a great prospect look like. And then you can give it another person and you can say, is this person a good prospect, a good client? So a friend of mine in the financial services community is building a tool right now, as a matter of fact, called Tulip. You can look it up if you haven't heard of it. It's not at market yet, but it does exactly what I'm talking about. He calls it a pain in the ass score. So he says, I actually score the clients that are kind of in the CRM as to how much of a pain in the ass they're going to be. And therefore, you're getting a measurement done by AI and based on previous experiences. The second one is, what are you talking to your clients about? So this is really content creation, right? What are you talking to your clients about? How many of you have CRM notes that you take about your clients? Like, probably everyone. You don't have to raise your hands. Thank you for those who did. So you're using those notes very infrequently, right? You're using them once a quarter. When your client walks in the door, you skim through the notes you took last time, and you're like, okay, now I remember their kids' names, what they like to do, and what they said their goals were from last time we met. Good. But those notes are sitting there. They're idle, right? They're idle assets for the rest of the quarter. No one's doing anything with them. I predict that there's going to be a lot of artificial intelligence that reads in all of those notes and everything that you're writing about a client and gives you regular, almost daily recommendations of what you should be talking to them about. Like, hey, did you see this in the news? You'll get a recommendation from this AI that will say, this piece of news about this college football team is great to send to your client, Elizabeth. And you'll be like, great idea, thank you, machine. And you'll send it to Elizabeth and say, hey, Elizabeth, I thought of you when I saw this. That is going to be a fantastic way for you to keep in touch with your clients and send them meaningful and relevant recommendations. And this is something that AI can produce very easily and will be very meaningful in the RIA space. The next one is, what, how, and where are you talking to your clients? So this, I don't know if you can see it that clearly. So this is kind of hitting the when. So this is from a company called Nora. Nora is a software developer kit that can be installed on any application, and they're actually targeting financial services firms like bigger wirehouses and banks right now. They install this software developer kit on an app, and what it does is it uses all of the things that your phone is using to understand your behavior. Like the ambient light can tell when you sleep. The gyroscope can actually tell how often you look at your phone. When you look at your phone. Do you look at your phone when you're driving? Are you driving? Right? The accelerometer can tell if you are driving or if you're running. And it knows if you're a runner. And it starts to figure out, based on all of the things your phone stores about you, it starts to figure out your pattern. Are you a workaholic? Are you a runner? Are you a, couch potato? So it figures out when to send you notifications. Everybody gets notifications on their phones, right, from all of the apps and news that you have. Those notifications do not come at random times. Not everybody gets a notification from Fox News or CNN at the same time. You get it according to your schedule, when they think you're going to open it. So these things are already happening, and now there's companies out there like Nora who are targeting financial service firm applications so that these firms can talk to their clients at the right time. Sorry for those of you who I freaked out with all the data that your phone has about you. We could go down that rabbit hole too if we have time. Here's something about like, how are you talking to your clients? Like, what's your mood? This is a program that my company uses, called TD Ameritrade uses, called Contently, and this is something where we write our content. You know, if it's a blog or it's something, we write the content in here, and our company has set targets for us based on how they want us to speak, right? How conscientious do you want to be? How agreeable? How extroverted, right? And we have targets. And mine always tells me that I have a screenshot here that I'm too straightforward, blunt, or something very New Yorker. That they're always getting me right on the nose. But this helps you figure out your mood. And there's more and more tools out there that are doing this on the cheap. This one is called Boomerang, that attaches to Gmail, and it will tell you as you're writing how polite, how positive, how subjective you're being with what you're writing. How many times have you written an email and had to ask someone else sitting next to you, does this sound mean? Tell me, do I sound? So this is replacing that human sort of sentiment, right? And this is helping you have the right tone with your clients, and it's sort of overlaying that, that mood measurement onto your emails. And the last one in this category is, I think there was one more about where. Well, I'll just talk about where before I talk about how are you following up. So where are you talking to your clients is the other one before this. So here's something really interesting that I learned from a company called Financial DNA, small startup that does behavioral science in the advisor space. You can lose a client before they even show up for the first meeting, a prospect. You can lose a prospect before they show up for their first meeting. Why? Because not everybody likes to come to your office to meet you, and not everybody likes when you come to their house. I never thought about this until afterwards. I was interviewing advisors, and I picked an advisor who I went to their office to meet them. I didn't pick the advisor who came to my house, and I didn't think about it at all. I didn't think that was a factor until I met this company called Financial DNA. There are some people that don't want you to come to their house. They think you're measuring them, you're looking around, they have to clean before you get there. It's a real pain in the ass. Some people think it's more of a pain to go to your office. They have to commute. Who do you think you are? You should come to me. And some people would rather meet you in a Starbucks because it's a mutual location that's neutral, right? And some people would think that you don't even have an office if you meet them at a Starbucks. So these are personality types that can be measured before you meet someone. So what this company, Financial DNA, does, and they do like a 1-month free trial if anyone wants to go give them a look, they create a quiz for your prospect. And it's a fun quiz. It's like the prospect is going to get a personality type that's enjoyable to me. When I take the quiz, it tells me what my personality type is. But what the advisor is getting is a measurement on where that person would prefer to have their initial meeting based on their personality traits. So things like that we don't really think about on how behavioral science and artificial intelligence is really going to impact the financial services space is exciting to me, and I predict that we're going to be seeing a lot more of this. And the last one is, how are you following up? I have been using voice transcription services and apps. Has anybody else been using that to record and transcribe meetings? One, a couple, a few. Okay, so this is, for those of you who aren't yet, this is the next big thing. It's interesting from a compliance perspective, and I'll talk about that in a second. But there are many apps, like I use Temi. There's an app called Otter. There's CopyTalk, I think, is another one that a lot of financial advisors use, where your phone is basically recording a conversation that you're having so that you can be completely engaged in the conversation, not taking notes. And what the app is doing is transcribing the meeting. Plus, you can add this that's artificial intelligence in and of itself, because it kind of learns human speech and gets better and better at transcribing it based on accents, etc. But then you can add a layer of AI on top of that, and there's a cool company called Voicea that was just purchased by Cisco, which pulls out important items and follow-ups. So I tested it for a few months. It's pretty good. It can get better, where if you say, I'll call you next week, or let's answer that question, it will pull that out of the meeting notes and kind of put it at the top as a follow-up item. It's really incredible. So this is going to transform the way we take meeting notes and the way we put our follow-ups in our CRM and in our calendar. We're going to have technology that's doing that for us thanks to AI. A word of caution, though, one thing that I did learn about, and I apologize if I'm taking away your plausible deniability right now, but it is considered written client communication if you have an app transcribe a client meeting. So FYI. That's it for me. I've been just rambling on. I would love questions from the audience if you all have any about artificial intelligence, about emerging technology. There are many things that I didn't get to talk about today, like voice in advisor practices. Any questions? Yes. The one that does the follow-up items. It's called Voicea. I always want to put an R on it, but it's Voice A. That's how you spell it. And they were just purchased by Cisco, so they might be rebranding now. Any other questions? Comments? Okay, cool. Thank you so much.